Hey there, Angela Herrington here. Thanks so much for joining us for the Deconstructing Faith Summit. We're going to have a fantastic week. We had our kickoff party yesterday, and I'm so excited that so many of you are joining us. We're going to jump into our very first session here in just a second. And I'm going to introduce you to one of my favorite people. But before we do that, I want to do just a little bit of housekeeping. Since this is our first session, this is kind of a new setup, right? So I want to let you know that there is a chat box over here right next to the video. We are going to be live in the chat. We're going to have some team members and some speakers in there throughout the event. So feel free to drop questions in real time. The other thing that I want to mention is at the end of the session, I'm going to be dropping a link in that chat box that'll take you over to the Facebook group. There's going to be a Facebook thread in the cafe for every single session that we're doing. So when you click on that, you can go over to this session and talk about it. What were your takeaways? What was your biggest aha? What was confusing? And what would you like more support around? The best part about having these two places that we can chat is that engaging in the two chat boxes and the two threads is going to earn you entries for the giveaway. You may have seen some stuff in the conversation we had last night that we're going to be giving away a couple of seats in the Deconstructing Your Faith course that's going to kick off right after the summit. So you don't have to jump through a lot of hoops. It's just about showing up and connecting with the speakers and connecting with each other and earning those engagements for those seats. So that's all the housekeeping I have for you right now. I'm really, really excited to introduce you to a friend and a mentor. And I can honestly say that we wouldn't actually be having this event without the influence of this person who I'm getting ready to introduce you to. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our very, very first speaker and a great friend of mine, Megan Gilmore. Megan is going to lead us through a session called You Are a Whole Sacrament, Ordinary Blessings and Sacred Elements. She is the founder and director of Lark Song and has been coaching for over 10 years and has been studying and contributing to the fields of leadership and positive psychology also for over a decade. She holds a bachelor's in psychology and leadership, a master's degree in addiction counseling from Indiana Wesleyan University, and has written, trained, and consulted and presented extensively on the topics of life purpose, leadership, coaching, addictions, and human development. In addition to holding 3 certifications in coaching nationally and internationally, she's a licensed clinical addictions counselor and an ordained minister. After leaving her 9-to-5 job in higher education, she started her own coaching practice and desired the collaboration, care, and dynamic effectiveness that can be experienced by working with a team that shares a common vision. She formed Lark Song in September of 2013. Some of you may have heard me talk about Lark Song. It's where I went for coaching school. And she began bringing on partners soon thereafter with a commitment to courageously co-create a world that purposefully chooses life and aliveness. There are a few things that Megan knows to be true. Having tea is best realized as an experience, not as a beverage. Maggiano's has the best lemon cookies on the planet. Everything is better with caramel. Assorted colors of pen in your positions at any time makes life more memorable. Engaging in a dance party solo or with a child at least once a day is essential to any exercise plan. And playing life small does not serve anyone. Elizabeth Taylor's advice to pour yourself a drink, put on some lipstick, and pull yourself together has saved her life multiple times. And probably mine, if you two, thanks, pouring that out on me a couple times has probably been life-saving. Thanks so much for being here, Megan.
Hey.
When I started planning this event, I couldn't think of anybody better
Mm,
to kick us off and to really set the tone for what I hope is just a really empowering and really encouraging event for everybody. So thanks for agreeing to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Angela. I'm really blessed to be here and excited just to talk with you and with the others that are joining in. And it's a beautiful way to connect. I'm pumped. I'm just pumped. I'm ready.
Me too. I'm always down for Megan time and to be able to
Same.
share our conversations with other people. I think it's really cool. We don't get to do that very
Yeah.
often. So
Yeah.
before we get started in kind of the heart of what you're going to be sharing with us today, would you mind sharing just a little bit about how your faith has shifted over the years?
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up in a pretty conservative evangelical home. And I think that something I recognize now that I didn't a few years ago is that creating that sort of home space was really important for my parents and their spiritual journey. But for me, along the way, I kind of settled into what I would call like some performance based worthiness and perfectionism, and really just trying to figure out like, how do I be good? Like, how do I be good enough? How do I
Yeah.
be holy enough to be right, like to be right with God, to be right with people. And there that provided like a sense of security, I think, for a long enough period of time. And it felt nourishing. And then I started really like digging into my faith as my own, my spiritual journey as my own, and really like studying. So the study of like biblical scriptures and things became really important to me, and a really a comforting practice to me for a while. And then like service within a local church and preaching and connecting with a congregation in a sanctuary was really an important part of my rhythm or practice for a long time. But I've always since I was a little girl connected to the divine in nature, and in a way that I is so real and special to me. And so I would say maybe 5-6 years ago, certain things in my religious practice started to unravel because they didn't make sense to me anymore. It didn't make sense for the way I wanted to connect with people and how I understood the kingdom of God being alive and here, and or that's what I called it at the time, I think. And so to kind of bottom line, over the last few years, I think I would say that I mean, this is the Deconstructing Faith Summit, right? So I would say that a path that a lot of people might label as deconstructing has been probably one of the most life-giving seasons of my spiritual journey so far, because it feels like it connects me to God in this moment, and God in that person, and God in these elements, and God in these other religious traditions in a way that expands my understanding of the divine and makes me fall more and more in love with spirit, in a way that now it feels like coming home to myself, whereas and coming home to a spirituality that works for me and the impact that I want to make in the world and the connections I want to have with other people. But I do think that in terms of if anybody else, has been or is going through that kind of journey, there was a lot of grief in it and a lot of pain or feeling betrayed or abandoned by the people that I felt like I belonged to before that. So yeah, that's a little bit about how it's shifted.
I can't even tell you how many people have said it just doesn't make sense anymore. So I can just imagine the swell of relief. You guys put this in the chat if that's what you're feeling, but I can just imagine the swell of relief of like, oh, good. There's other people out there that some of this stuff isn't making sense to. Not that I'm not smart enough or that I haven't, learned enough, but like it's I can't
almost like I've learned too much.
Yeah. Like if I had stopped 10 years ago, we'd be fine. But curious me is like I can't reconcile what I know to be true about God, what I know to be true about the divine, and what I see in my daily spiritual life. And that's where we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the expansiveness of God this week, and a lot of time just talking about those things that don't make sense, because there's a whole lot of information and there's a whole lot of conversations out there that most of us don't get to be a part of inside that traditional evangelical conservative church. Well, your session today, we're going to be talking about sacrament. We're going to talk about ordinary blessings and sacred elements. Would you mind just kind of kicking us off with a little bit about what does that mean? Like, what are sacraments and sacred elements?
Yeah, so I think that one thing that I've noticed about myself and others that are trying to create a more authentic spiritual path for themselves is that if if it's not within a traditional church, right, or sanctuary or gathering, then it's like, then what is it, and how do I construct it, and what does, I think a big question is like, what does devotion look like now, right? Like I'm in deconstructing, we step into a space of like really getting curious and leaning into wonder and often mystery, like the mystery that is the divine. And that feels really full and life-giving, and sometimes chaotic and confusing. but um, but it's hard to determine like, well, what does devotion look like now? And outside of what I would call sacraments or liturgies within the church, right? So sacraments are just when we take an element and we say it is sacred, and we use it, we fashion it, or craft it in such a way to enhance our connection to each other, to God, in a manner that can be repeated again, right? So an example of a sacrament is baptism. A lot of people are familiar with that from lots of different religious traditions. And what we do with baptism is we partner with a part of our body, our voice, right? Partner with a part of our body and an element, water. And with our voice and with water, we declare a oneness with the divine through this act of engaging with water and our voice and that sort of thing. Same is true with communion, right? We partner with the element of earth through wine and bread, or for some of us, juice and bread, or whatever it might be, and with each other in almost a ritual that says, okay, I'm partnering with this element from the earth and doing so in a way that can be repeated, that declares my devotion to this belief or to these people, right? And so one of the most fun things I think about sacraments is when you realize that you just are one. Like, you getting right?
Somebody tweet that. You are one.
You just are a whole sacrament in and of yourself. Like, the divine is incarnate in you. And there's so many traditions and so many verses and so many things we could say, experiences to go to, or even the collective wisdom of the saints that we could go to and say, that is a true thing. Like, that is a true thing, that God is incarnate within us. We now, at this point in history, are fleshy divine beings, right? And I think that when we've been rooted in a belief system that starts with original sin rather than original blessing, that can become a little like, ooh, we got to untangle some stuff to get to, really, I'm a fleshy divine being? Yes. Like, yes, we are. Amazing. And we have all of the elements in us. Like, we have so much of a percentage of our body is water. We're made from dust. We go back to dust. We've got air filling and circulating through our systems constantly. And then fire, like, there's electricity running through our bodies, like in our nervous system and through our fascia and all these other things. And I'm just like, whoa. Like, whoa.
That summarizes my deconstruction.
Whoa. Yeah. Exactly. And so if we can kind of, say all of these elements are sacred because they are, like, they are, and they're sacred because they're in you. What if we could start crafting how we engage with our own body and how we engage with these elements in a creative way that it honors where we are right now and creates like a system or a rhythm of devotion that works for us now, and then can also shift and work for us in the future too. So that's
I love that. And I think for me, one of the most, pardon the pun, earth-shattering things that I had to kind of unlearn and then relearn was this idea that I'm not striving to make myself sacred. I'm not striving to be good enough to be allowed to be loved by God, like
Right.
that earn it kind of thing.
Right.
And I don't know, you guys chime in the chat. I don't know if that's a Midwestern thing. I don't know if that's a U.S. thing. I'd love to hear everybody else. But it's really, really deeply ingrained in everybody who ever contributed to raising me. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, and so kind of stepping back and realizing that's not a work that we have to do really helped me get some of those limiting beliefs out of my head.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I learned from you is that sacredness isn't just something that is within us. It's not something we create. It's not something that happens when we show up. It's actually here all the time.
Right.
And even the spaces that we exist in can be a sacrament and are sacred. And so, one of the things I had invited you to do today, and I'm really glad that we're doing this, is to acknowledge the sacredness of the space that we're in now. So, if you wouldn't mind just kind of telling us a little bit about this process and leading us through it, I would love to honor that.
Absolutely. So, a couple years ago, I was finally able to connect with the Miamiaki, which is the Miami people, the Miami Nation. And they have helped me with my understanding and knowledge and crafting the acknowledgement that I'm about to read, because I don't want to take too long, and I'm not going to get it wrong either, as much as it's up to me. So right now, Angela and I are located in the modern day city of Marion in Indiana, which is located on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Miamiaki and the Kickapoo. And before that, several other tribes that have been lost to extinction or become unnamed throughout history. And so we want to honor the elders of both the past and present, as well as future generations of the Miamia people and the Kickapoo Nation, and express gratitude for their stewardship in the land that we currently occupy. Pre-colonially, the Miamia people inhabited large parts of the Great Lakes and Midwest region in the present-day United States, with the center of their community life really converging on the Wabash River Valley. Their self-given name can be translated the downstream people in English. And the indigenous ancestors in this region were brilliant agriculturalists and hunters that lived life based on an ecologically driven rhythm, and were guided by what we call vital cycles, like the rising and setting of the sun, the cycle of the moon, harvesting, planting, that sort of thing. We acknowledge these skills and ways of being as essential to our well-being and vitality, and continue to grow in understanding and applying these principles through our relationship with the Miami Nation. And another really cool thing that they're known for is lacrosse and intricate ribbon work. So the final treaty between the Miamiaki and the US government is called the Treaty of the Wabash, and it was signed in 1840, drew the Miami Nation's boundary line on the northwest side of our courthouse square. So really very close to that. The treaty was written as a land purchase that promised $550,000 to the Miami Nation and was never paid. Shocking. 6 years later, the Miamiaki, who numbered about 300 people at that time, were forcibly removed to lands in Kansas, and then forcibly removed again in the 1860s and 70s to lands in Oklahoma. So the place that we're living in and learning in today has been and continues to be the home of indigenous peoples since time immemorial. And the Miami Nation of Oklahoma is a vibrant and rich community that's resurrected their language, nurtures their culture, and is actively restoring their ancestral relationship with this land that we're on. So you can find their cultural resource office in Fort Wayne, Indiana, on private land that was donated back to them. And I think that my heart, and I think Angela's heart too, is as presenters and or educators, just to acknowledge and assume the responsibility to share that important aspect of our history and our present culture with you, and encourage you, because you're joining from all over the place, to figure out what that ancestral history and what the present culture of the indigenous people on the lands you're occupying or inhabiting are. Not just for the sake of being able to acknowledge that, but for the sake of building relationship and growing and understanding and restoring our relationship with our modern day indigenous neighbors, so that we can also understand how to become better naturalized relatives in this land together. So yeah, that's a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I think that the only thing I would tack onto that too is that I don't think we can actually understand our own sacredness without understanding the sacredness of others, and not just like other people. We talk about a lot of times it's taught that humans are sacred, but everything else is kind of a couple notches down. So you push past that. Don't get boxed in by that, and really question in all of the questions that you're asking. Question, what have you been taught that isn't sacred, and just sit with that and wonder, what if there's more?
Yes.
Right? You don't even have to ask if people are right or wrong. Just, what if there's more?
Yeah.
And allow that expansiveness to come into those places that seemed very cut and dry. Because if there's one thing that deconstruction isn't, it's cut and dry.
Right. Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, like
spoiler.
Right.
Spoiler.
Yeah. What if all those places that we somehow learned were non-sacred or profane or unholy, or what's another word, like secular or whatever.
Heretical. I get called that regularly.
Oh yeah. What if that too is sacred? What if we're actually missing something by saying that it's not, right? Yeah. So
yeah, you mentioned kind of developing rhythms and practices, and so I know you put together something for us today to kind of ease us into just treating ourselves a little differently. So why don't you just bring me up to speed on that? Let everybody know what we're going to be doing here.
Great. So something that's helpful for me is to like break things down into its components, right? So if a sacrament is partnering with sacred elements, then what are those elements? And for me, the most basic elements are earth, wind, water, fire. And then to engage myself with those sacred elements and rhythm, I have to know the parts of myself, right? So the dimensions of myself that make sense to me are my spirit, my mind, my heart, my body, and my soul. And so I've taken each of the elements and I've connected that to a blessing or a welcome for the different parts of me. And I would love to share it with you all, with the understanding that this is kind of vulnerable. This is a personal devotion and practice that works for me well, and that I offer as an example and an invitation, but not at all a prescription. So I have for my my elements, I have a candle for fire here, and I'm gonna connect that to spirit in me. And then I have movement just with my hands for air and a breath. And then for the earth element, I've got this little anointing oil that I made. And then I've got just my water in my cup. So very ordinary things for me, right? To engage. So, and then this is my wholehearted welcome to both you and myself. So my soul, I wholeheartedly welcome you to this day. Spirit, I call you back to myself from your wanderings. Linger here with me. I am grateful for your vastness. Mind, and here I untangle knots, air knots. Mind, I promise not to make you smaller or more digestible for the sake of connection. And I choose to believe that one way we find belonging is through your brilliance. Heart, This is where I drink some water. I trust your wild wisdom and honor your sensitivity. I will be dedicated to nourishing your hunger. I will not abandon you. Body. Anoint myself here. Here. You are a holy wonder, deserving of pleasure, play, protection, and yielded holding. I will not weaken your expression of divinity or minimize your knowing. I am whole. I am here. That's the wholehearted welcome.
Thanks for sharing that with us. It's as your friend, it's gorgeous. I love it for you, and I could see how you've trusted yourself and crafted that in a way that's meaningful to you. So thank you for sharing that very, very vulnerable
You're
process
so welcome.
with us.
Thanks for the invitation.
So for anyone who's kind of sitting out here and thinking, well, that's really beautiful, but I don't know where to start. What's your advice for someone who just just baby steps? How can they start crafting a practice or connecting with their sacredness today?
Yeah, I would say one way is to identify your space of longing. So if you can kind of run through those 5 dimensions of yourself, like spirit, mind, heart, body, soul, and whatever those mean to you, right? But spirit, mind, heart, body, soul, what dimension of yourself is longing for something else? Or where are you hoping for something for yourself? Or where might there be like a held wish for that part? And start with just that one part, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's your heart, right? I know after COVID and quarantine, and I've talked with so many people that just feel a little numb, like it's really hard to connect to our hearts right now, for some people. And so maybe you start with your heart and you just ask, like, what are you longing for? And what if you could bless yourself with that thing? Like, what if in partnership with God, you could call forth or call on that thing to become a part of you, or to enter into you, or to engage with it in some way? So it could just be like, may my heart be sensitive, like may it not be numb, right? And then so that's the first thing. And the second thing is attaching that to something tangible, to some sort of action that you do with your body. And it can be very simple. It can be lighting a candle. It can be taking a drink of water. It can be anointing yourself. So one thing that I do a lot is take a salt shower. And so this is something that a friend of mine told me about, but she just takes salt into the shower with her and scrubs her body down. And as she does, she blesses her body and like lets all the yucky stuff that just go down the drain with the salt, right? So that might sound weird to some people, like, why would you take salt? And that's fine. It can be a little weird, I'm sure the first time that someone was like, right, I'm sure that someone was the first time that Jesus was like, hey, this bread is like my body, just eat it. Like, I'm sure that people were like, that's a little weird, but okay, I'll try it, and now people do that all over the world. So or the first time that somebody was like, oh yeah, maybe just like offer up an animal,
right
that might have sounded a little weird, you know what I'm saying? But we don't have to even get that weird. You can just take some salt into the shower. You can light a candle. Or maybe one thing that I do a lot, I have these gemstones for some, I told you nature's a big thing for me. So sometimes I'll just take a stone and hold it or put it in my pocket. And that's the action, like holding it while I bless myself. So pick a place, a dimension in yourself that holds some kind of longing, and then pick an element to engage with: earth, wind, air, fire, right? and do an action with that element while you bless that part of yourself. So just that in and of itself can feel like a kind of complicated thing. Don't let it. Just let it be simple.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let it be awkward
vulnerable.
if it feels awkward.
Exactly.
Let it be vulnerable. And I would even say recognize that it feels awkward and weird because nobody taught you to do this.
Right. Yeah. It might be the first time that you're actually listening to your longing and saying that that's not wrong or evil. You know, listening to your longing as like maybe a guide to the next right thing for yourself.
Yeah. And you mentioned that thing about numbness. What I notice is that I'm really good at disconnecting from all those things, right? And so before I could get to the place to find my longing, like life had and trauma had squashed hope and longing a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I had to look for where I was angry, where I was grieving. Like I couldn't, what could I not connect with?
Yeah.
And I had to do some work there. And so I was initially connecting with a space that I wasn't connected with because I had been taught to push that aside. And so it's not like you get to jump into the deep end today and all of your conditioning for your whole life is like replaced with this new practice. So just trust. I would just encourage you to trust the process and trust yourself enough to know that you'll be wherever you need to be. Yeah. Even if it looks totally different than what we've done here today, it's okay. There's no pressure to perform here because you're a sacrament, whether you have a practice or not.
Right. Yeah. And for some people, a sacramental, like a rhythm can be washing the dishes, you know, or eating a meal that you're actually tasting, you know what I mean? Or something like that. So I love what you said about how sometimes it's like longing is a few layers down because we haven't asked for it yet, or we haven't trusted it yet, or we don't know where to find that yet. But I think that if you can flip pain, like flip to the other side of pain, you'll find longing there.
Absolutely.
And but pain might be the first thing, like being able, because sometimes it speaks a little bit louder. So if you can even tap in with like, where am I sensing tension or pain or anxiety, and bring blessing to that space, or prayer or wish to that space.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that so much. So much good stuff. If people want to find you and keep learning from you, tell us where to go. I know where to find you. I can drive to your house, but you know, people across the world can't do that. So where can we find you online?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram and on Facebook, just as a person, Megan Gilmore. And you can also feel free to email me. It's Megan, MEGAN, at Larksong, LARKSSONG.com. If you want to just connect with me. Angela told me there's going to be a whole bunch of you here. So if a bunch of you email me, just be patient.
Just be patient. It may take a minute.
I will respond thoroughly, but it might take a minute. And feel free to annoy me. You know what I mean? Like if you're like, no, I really want to connect with you, feel free to annoy me via email or on Instagram or something like that. You can also find the work that I'm doing in the world at larksong.com, LARKSSONG.com. We do well-being education as well as certified coach training and something that we call culture care there. So definitely check out the work that we're doing there. If you don't find what you're looking for, then reach out, because our vision is to courageously co-create a more fulfilled and flourishing world. So we constantly are working with people to customize experiences that reach them where they are and just move us all toward more flourishing together. So that's where you can find me.
Fantastic. We'll make sure we have links under the video so people can easily find you and get connected and find out what's going on. Just a side note, for those of you that are parents or care for children, Larksong actually has some great material on their site about working with kiddos, and we've used it here I've mothered myself with it, to be honest, but I've also mothered my children with it, and it's earth shattering. It's a whole bunch of stuff that if the whole world knew, things would be really different. There'd be a lot more compassion in the world. So just a sidebar, I'll make sure we've got the link to the Little Arcs material too. But I know a lot of your parents, so I want to throw that in there too, and give you a shout out for that, because it's good stuff. It's good stuff. Thanks for being here, Megan.
Yes, thanks for having me.
I got Megan time. Oh, thanks so much for being here. For those of you that are watching, again, thanks for popping in. We've got a whole lot of great things on the schedule for you this week. Feel free to drop in the chat, drop over in the cafe, and then each evening there's also going to be a live session where I'm going to be in the Facebook group, and we're just going to talk. We're just going to hang out in our pajamas, and we're just going to kind of talk about the day and all of those things. So if you've got questions, or if you have an amazing experience this afternoon, you tried this and you're like, oh, guess what I discovered? We'd absolutely love to hear about that over in the Facebook group. And of course, engaging is going to earn you those entries into the giveaway for the Deconstructing Your Faith course. So bonus, you get to talk, you get to connect with people in your pajamas, and we also get to give away some free stuff. So it's kind of the best of all the worlds. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next session.